But I've finally completed the entire bestiary, and I wanted to show everyone all the enemies. And instead of just showing the enemies without the text, I'll just read everything. So hopefully that makes this a more viewable video. And it's much easier to stream it than to record it and compile it later. So here we go. Being a mischievous, mean-spirited beastie, mercifully lacking the intelligence to do any real damage, sproutlings are called cactites. A rare strain is notable for its proclivity to sprout a scarlet blossom, that being seldom seen, of the highest value and considered a sign of miraculous good fortune by sensitive young lovers with a tolerance for needles. Ye adventurers only beginning on your travels. Your first task should well be the collection of 1,000 needles from the fickle cactoid. Upon plucking this collection, you will find yourself not only the proud owner of a bundle of needles, but possessed of great experience in interminable combat withal, and should you sell it, a pittance of coin. If making a bundle exceeds your capabilities, the adventurer is urged to reconsider his or her vocation and take up employ about town. Adventuring is not all fun and games, mark you. Deceptively joyful colorations adorn this carnivorous Isthmian of vicious temperament. Of its armaments, the naturalist Merlot has called it a beast most fierce, it having a lower mandible which jutteth out like a war spear, this being used to rend and tear flesh of its prey, and a voracious appetite quite exceeding its diminutive size. When feeding in shoals, they are known to devour large creatures such as the wild saurian in the blink of an eye. Kingdom of Dalmasca, a small kingdom comprising the lands around the city of Rabanastre, governing a portion of the Galtaean Peninsula. While its territories are small, its situation at the crossroads of 3 continents has enabled it to prosper as a center for trade. More than 700 years are marked in the charts of history since her founding, yet many are the armies that have sought to claim her for her cultural richness and strategic importance. Upon her defeat to Arcadia in the invasion of 704, her lands were placed under the direct control of the Empire. The years in this game are very strange. Agile, swift, and keen of tooth, the wolf is the preeminent hunter, widely known to Roman packs led by an alpha. Though once they lived in close harmony with mankind, fierce competition over prey brought man to shun and eventually revile them. Thereafter, the wolves took to the eating of monsters, and from this arising diverse strains of wolf, varying greatly in form and adaptation befitting their diet. Dalmasca Ester Sand. One of the large desert regions of Dalmasca, located to the east of Rabanastre, rife with all manner of monstrous beasts, it regularly plays host to hunts organized within the city. What settlements there are line the banks of the river Nebra, a vibrant blue vein running through the heart of the sands, wherein can be found ferries for the conveyance of travelers and goods across her flow. Many merchants make a point of stopping in the villages to trade on their way to and from Rabanastre. And that reminds me, I didn't do the fishing minigame, because it's so boring. The wild saurian, which the XII likes to eat entirely. Once lords of the land together with the other wormkin, a war with the gods dwindled their numbers to a mere fraction of their former glory. This great creature possesses sharp teeth in its sizable maw, by which it captures and rends the flesh of its prey, and a grand tail, the latter being used for balance as it strides upon 2 powerfully appointed hind legs. One of the singular problems in clearing new land is, surprisingly enough, the removal of monstrous bones, they being far more resistant to wear and far heavier than those of men. The worst of these by far are tyrant bones. Though they too will erode over the ages, their weight and strength are most uncommon, and even the hottest flame will leave no mark upon them. To expect anything less from such a bone would be to forget the awesome might of the tyrant from whence it came. Lo, the mighty cockatrice, proud, feathered sphere, known as much for its ill humor as its dire rotundity. The great naturalist Merlot once remarked, Live they in the sands and other arid climes, whereabouts they moveth in a rolling fashion most peculiar. Subsist they principally on small creatures and vermin, for the incapacitation of which they disgorge a sticky saliva, thence devouring captured morsels only when appetite moves them. Swollen sacs containing airs are found under the surface of the skin, and when inflated, these lifting the creature upon draughts unseen, whence to espy suitable prey. Dalmasca Wester Sand. One of the vast deserts of the Dalmascan region, situated to the west of Rabanastre. Few roads pass through this waste, and as such it is little frequented by merchants. In Dalmasca Wester Sand the sandstorms are more greatly feared than the beast, so much so, in fact, whole societies of natural philosophers in Rabanastre study. In the chronicles it is said that in time out of memory the gods fashioned here a paradise, yet man was ill-satisfied and sought to cultivate the lands beyond. The soil was thus enriched, yet this gave rise to differences to greed, and greed to war. The gods wept and raged and cleft the land, casting men into the gaping abyss. Out of this tumult the Noma Entite was born. The strength of the earth carries us, does not but be under all, languid, resistant, a mass against which the spirit is strained and eventually broken. Only the power of wind may tempt the indolent soil into action. The earth, now called, cares for you, heart cleft, and for you alone will it open and reveal the rich electrum it holds. The Dive Talon. Called the Pirate King of the Skies for its uncanny powers of flight and ability to strike silently with fatal precision. Its startling plumage is no evolutionary accident, being intended to dissuade dragons and other natural predators. Ironically, the sturdiness of these vibrant beast deterrents makes them highly prized for crafting and reinforcing cloth, attracting another kind of predator, the profit-hungry hunter. Nalbina Fortress. A fortress built on an oasis located between the old kingdoms of Dalmasca and Nebradia. Defended by high ridges and barren sands, long it stood firm against generations of aggressors. Nalbina Fortress and the merchant town that sprung up in its shadow made the area a focal point for local commerce. The treaty to end hostilities in the war with Arcadia was signed at Nalbina, yet immediately after the signing the Dalmascan king was slain, and as a result the kingdom of Dalmasca came under complete Arcadian Imperial rule. In the 2 years since the war and occupation by Arcadian forces, the fortress has become a key strategic stronghold against the distant yet ever-threatening Rosarian Empire. Works continue to this day to repair the damage which the fortress suffered during the war. Recently, markets where antiques and rarities can readily be had have sprung up in the outer wards of the fortress, taking advantage of the steady flow of traffic which passes through this midpoint between Rabanastre and Nabudis. It is this pivotal location that gives the fortress its unique character. Many are the travelers who visit Nalbina Fortress to witness this ever-booming oasis that refuses to silt over in neglect, or crumble before the blistering winds of war. Giza Plains. A gifted hunter, possessed of sharp horns and fangs, reputed never to spare its quarry once sighted. The larger variety of these is known as the alpha hyena. They consume all manner of things, from wee beasts to the largest of behemoths, and do not turn up their noses at the carrion flesh of similar. The horns growing from their snouts are used to impale larger opponents and are sharp as well-honed blades. They excel in slipping past a foe's defenses, whereupon they deliver a most telling blow to the vitals. This description makes them sound very, very dangerous, but they're like a basic enemy. Lowtown lies, as its name would suggest, beneath the city streets of Rabanastre. Great pillars standing throughout Lowtown support the soaring edifices above. Prior to the war with Arcadia, many merchants used Lowtown as a place to store foodstuffs and wares for sale. With the defeat and occupation of Arcadia, many of the former residents of Upper Rabanastre were relocated here, leading to its gradual transformation into a residential area. No natural light shines down on Lowtown, save where there are passages to the streets above, making it perpetually gloomy. Many orphans from the war have adopted Lowtown as their new home. The Woolly Gator. Formerly inhabiting tropical climes, the bodies of these fierce predators have begun to adapt to deteriorating climatic conditions by growing a thick coat of spindly hair. Known to spend much of their time in the water, except during the mating season, when they are sometimes sighted furtively going about their business during the rains in Giza Plains. Their jaw, being split into two halves, is well suited to keeping a tight grip on prey, allowing them time to administer a finishing blow as and when they see fit. The Shiva is a number 1 light cruiser class airship belonging to the 8th Fleet of the Arcadian Imperial Army. Ordered to return to Rabanastre after the Nethicite fragment known as the Dawn Shard was recovered, but sank in an explosion thought to have been caused by the relic before she could make port. Happy Bunny. Being a fiendish creature, taking the form of an adorable bunny, for which indeed it is all the more fiendish. Living in the dry savanna lands, such as can be found in Giza Plains during the dry or Osmone Plain. The name of the beastie is given to change according to its location, so that those of Giza Plains are called Giza rabbits, and those of Osmone Plain are called Osmone hares. They are wont to migrate during periods of inclement weather, and one may find that, depending on the season, a given specimen may be found in Giza Plains or Osmone Plain. The Giza Plains is a vast savanna spreading to the south of the royal city of Rabanastre, the environs of which vary drastically between dry and rainy seasons. Large dark crystals lie scattered here and there across the savanna. During the dry, they absorb the sun's radiance and glow with an auric brilliance. A village of nomadic herders is located near the middle of the grasslands. During the rains, the villagers relocate to the mountains. While they reside in the grasslands, the menfolk rarely return from their herding, leaving the women and children to their own devices in the village. These nomads know the art of capturing the energy of the dark crystals in chunks of magicite called sunstone, which they then bring to market to sell. The animals by which they make their living are primarily of cockatrice stock. Great tortoise. Sorry, I got a message. Being a sizable tortoise with a massy shell of broad circumference. I love that this PS4 version has made these turtles look so much better. Their shells look all shiny now. Customarily living in the deep places of the earth, caves and the like, save during the rains when they are known to emerge and forage in the vicinity of water. Tortoises newly spawned are wrapped in a thick shell, protecting them after the fashion of an egg. Upon their growing, their legs and feet break through the shell, this being the adult form, whereafter they continue to grow until such growth is arrested by illness or incident. This description is kind of weird because their shells look too intricate to be eggs, but I don't know. And it doesn't even explain how they're chained at the feet. The Leviathan, number 1 Dreadnought class airship, being the flagship of the 8th Fleet of the Arcadian Imperial Army. The 8th Fleet was assigned to the Galtea Tactical Force of the Western Armada under the command of Judge Giza. Fitted with a sky stone made to resist the effects of Yagd, the Leviathan was a linchpin of the Imperial Army's main force, sunk in an explosion caused by the uncontainable reaction of the Nethicite fragment known as the Dawn Shard. Sleipnir, being the result of much breeding in a now long forgotten land, the aim of which being the creation of a superior war charger around which to build a cavalry without equal in all Ivalice. In this time when a cavalry's strength meant victory or defeat, There was one knight whose feats in the saddle shone above all others. This hero among men named his horse Sleipnir, a name later given to those steeds chosen by his disciples. In more recent days, the great cavalries of old are gone, their once proud steeds grown wild and feral at heart. Ivalice. The region consisting of 3 continents of Valendia, Ordalia, and Caerwan, blessed throughout with verdant natural landscapes and climactic conditions supporting a great variety of life. Regional climate trends are thought to be determined largely by the density of mist present in the air, though this correlation is as yet not well understood. Many humanoids call Ivalice home, each belonging to a distinct cultural sphere. By far the most prevalent of these are the Humes, and it is around their civilization that affairs throughout the rest of the world revolve. Much like our world. Silicon tortoise. Being a variety of giant tortoise, spending its infant stage quietly beneath the soil only to emerge upon maturity. It is a quality of the giant tortoises that, depending on how deep down in the earth their youth was spent, the composition of their shell and thus particular species to which they belong comes to differ. Of their ilk, the silicone tortoise has spent its youth in the deepest of tenable places, being born with a thick layer of fat inside its shell so as to sustain its growth without the need to eat. Talk about town. Armor once sundered requires repair, and that costing more dearly when such is of high quality. Why? Fool, you must use materials like strength, lest all essays at repair be entered into vainly. Nor is the procurement of such a mean task. Stories abound of hale warriors venturing forth to obtain shells, though as iron in ne'er returning have run afoul of said shell's occupant, Kana the White Mage. I don't know if I could do this this dialect justice, but I'll try my best. Wild snake, being a curious creature having a serpentine body wherefrom grow 6 blades. They are known to dig holes in the ground and lie in wait for prey therein. In antiquity, these were said to possess large mouths decked with prominent fangs, these having since receded in concert with the gradual flattening of the creature's form, and after splaying sideward to form the aforementioned blades. Indurate scales covereth the snake's body, which are so shaped to permit rapid movement over all manner of terrain. Rabanastre, capital of old Dalmasca, and before that many other kingdoms stretching back into the storied history of the Galtaean Peninsula. Rule by the Dalmascan royal family lasted for several hundred years before the city's fall to the Arcadian Empire 2 years past, now an imperial territory. The story of the city's people is the story of 3 cultures, those of Valendia, Ordalia, and Caerwan, who bore trade goods along the many well-frequented routes leading to her welcoming gates. The town proper of Rabanastre is divided into 4 sections by the cardinal directions of the compass. The east and west are merchant districts, the streets lined with shops and stalls of every description. In the north, the streets widen into a large piazza facing the palace. To the south can be found 3 gates leading beyond the city walls to the Damascus Desert and Giza Plains. The aerodrome can be found in the western outskirts of town, surrounded by numerous privately operated airship docks. In the northwestern part of town stands a splendid cathedral built in the Galtaean style, the bell of which, when rung, sounds through every hearth and home in the city. A werewolf. The story of this strange man-like creature began, it is said, when a group of bandits ate the corrupted flesh of a wolf, becoming infected and changing form. Indeed, like the wolf, these afflicted beings are known to feed with relish upon rotting meat. As carrion feeders oft develop strong resistance to illness, some natural philosophers have urged detailed study of the creature in hopes of culling reagents for medicaments from their flesh. You've heard the famous saying that a good steak is worth tenfold its weight in potions? Of course you have. Now that saying's older than I am, and potions and filters have come a long way since I was a lad, but you have to admit it still has the ring of truth about it. Eat a quality steak, look me in the eye, and tell me it doesn't invigorate you. Irim, the apothecary. In Urstrix, being the progeny of wildfowl taken into the magicite mines to ascertain the presence of noxious fumes. On occasion of a mining accident, these birds would be exposed to great quantities of mist, under the influence of which they would at length give birth to chicks with stunted wings of most peculiar shape. Perplexed, the hens discarded their unwanted, flightless brood, these becoming the feral Urstrix. Ordalia is a continent on the western edge of Ivalice. The vast plains in the interior are home to the great Rosarian Empire. To the east of Rosaria, the land is arid and largely desert. The Galtaean Peninsula on the eastern portion of the continent is a crossroads connecting to Valendia and Kirwan both, and a strategic prize sought by empire and kingdom alike. Though Dalmasca controlled the peninsula for the last several hundred years, it was lost to the Arcadian Empire in an invasion 2 years past. Being an elemental of lightning, traveled to our land on a bolt from the sky. On this subject, the old tomes speak much of the wrath of gods made apparent in the storm lights and their anguished cries and the rolling thunder. Even today, when knowledge of the elementals and the natural order in which they occur is widespread, these superstitions endure, such that many disdain harnessing the power of the bright element, fearing to profane the teachings of the gods. These sacred activities are reserved for and entrusted to priests of the highest orders. One of my mates, he has this funny habit of taking the fine materials you might use for building manses and like, and pounding them into plain old pebbles with his bare hands. He's a famed pugilist, he is. Says that smashing all that quality stone makes for great training, and gives him something to take his frustrations out on. I don't know why he don't take them out in the ring, though. If you ask me, it's a shameful wasted gil, as well as some half-decent stones, says Gustin the merchant. Slavin. Valued through much of history for their size and great locomotive power as beasts of burden, recent advances in transport technologies have seen this noble beast fall by the wayside. Rare have their trainers become withal, such that only a few still remain alive in Ivalice today. While some argue that the breed should be preserved as part of our cultural heritage, most modern specimens are thoroughly feral, beyond pacification by even a skilled trainer. Marks are beasts, scourge of the common peoples of Ivalice, foul creatures who take the greatest relish from inflicting the most gratuitous harm. Of these, the worst are identified as a public menace and made marks, for the slaying of which a bounty is offered. Most mark hunting petitions come from commoners or local officials, though kingdoms have been known to issue requests for the slaying of particularly malevolent menaces. Mark hunters range from professional hunters to casual adventurers. The unwary be warned, though mark hunting is imagined by some to be a short road to fame and fortune, it is oftentimes found to be a short road to an early grave. The Mardu-Entite. Tales of the people speak oft of the wrathful gods visiting man with lightning, and the remorseful gods weeping the rain that follows. For this did peasants once light fires, sending smoke up to the heavens in hopes it would cause the eyes of the gods to water, irrigating their crops. Yet these fires did not but incur once more the gods' wrath, and in a rage they sent rainless lightning down to blast and scorch those who had offended. It is said these bolts gave birth to the Mardu-Entite. How better to quell the lightning's blind rage, to still the mindless roar of her answering thunder, than by drawing a veil of ice around it, cold enough to freeze passion itself. So will the dark clouds part, and let shine through a light as brilliant as the sun, the light of Electrum. Karen Scythe Waterway. Being a manor of vile and verminous beastie, much favoring the fetid stench of sewers, and making their nest therein. Past attempts at eradication to contain the plagues these pests are known to carry have greatly reduced their numbers. Yet a preternatural rate of reproduction has kept the strain from extinction, and so they remain an ever-popular subject for natural philosophers keen to fathom the secrets of their indomitable constitution. The rat tail, a cheap reagent for all your potion crafting needs. And that's not all. Some aficionados say that they're quite tasty, fried with little cactus butter. Ew. The large volume disappearing from merchant stalls would seem to confirm their popularity. Rumor has it that with the right spices, the flavor can only be described as transcendent. I, for one, am not sure I'm quite ready to transcend. Baratine Croc. Should the traveler hear a hauntingly sweet song in the wetlands, beware, for it is surely the dulcet lure of the Baratine Croc, a crafty and dangerous beast favoring cold climes and dank underground caverns. The thick layer of moss-green fur covering much of its bulk is of great density and containing of air pockets which further insulate the beast against the elements, making it better suited to living in harsh environs than its gator brethren. Have you slain the sweet singing Baratine Croc? Then look into its belly for the lost treasures of those who hunted this wily beast and felt. You may claim a broken sword or the like. Do with your findings what you will, but we recommend turning a profit. Whatever it meant to those who came before, to you it's a treasure with which to line your pockets. Then again, you could use it to armor yourself, adventurer. Who knows, it may be your broken sword that is found next. Gigantode. This amphibious carnivorous monstrosity is said to live only in the Dalmasca region, much to the relief of peoples living elsewhere. During the mating season, the male inflates a great sac in his gullet, producing a distinctive galump sound, whereby he makes his intentions known to the fair, as far as he's concerned, sex. Its horns are unsuitable for combat, and are instead used to mark territory with gouges on trees, as do some great cats, or for threatening the predatory woolly gator. Though possessed of a relatively peaceable nature, the gigantode is fiercely territorial, and can be deadly when provoked. The Garum Scythe Waterway is an underground waterway running deep beneath the royal city of Rabanastre. Built and rebuilt over the centuries, no one alive knows all of its labyrinthine ways. Some are said to lead even to the royal palace. There are stairs leading down to the waterway in Lowtown, but they are normally barred to keep unwelcome visitors down in the sewers where they belong. The Marlborough Overking. This small borough, through its abstinence of the odd practice of heterogenesis, by which its lesser ilk procreate, has reached the foreseeable pinnacle of its development. Its hide has grown hard to the very point of petrification, and the crown it wears is studded with a glittering gemstone for each year of its life. Truly a king among foul-smelling vegetables. Completed Phase 3 of inquiry into the nature of putrid breath. Unable to annul stench, though have developed several deodorant solutions of passable strength. And 3 fragrances withal, such as may be marketable with further refinement. Indeed, 3 of my most experienced researchers have joined a small venture marketing these scents, so spend their days mixing, culling, and sniffing. They have even achieved some measure of financial success with a particular fragrance derived from putrid liquid, the public being none the wiser. I know not if I will see them in my laboratory again. Garchimacera. There was once an unenlightened age when all manner of maladies were believed to be the work of demons. It was customary in those days to place statues with terrible visages in the houses of curing, so as to ward off these demons. Eventually it came to pass that the people thought of these statues themselves as a sort of demon, and they feared them so much that the fear took shape, and the Garchimacera was born, a foul simulacrum of the statues carved to keep such evil at bay. The Royal Palace. A short walk north from the center of Rabanastre will lead you to the gates of the Royal Palace. Before the war with Arcadia, this magnificent structure was home to the Dalmascan royal family, and barracks to the order of knights that serve them. It is currently employed as living quarters and apartments by the recently appointed consul from Arcadia, that being Lord Vane. The palace itself was built several centuries ago and has since been home to many Damascan monarchs, King Rabanastre being the most recent. Numerous additions have been made to the palace over the course of its long history, the royal city of Rabanastre having several times fallen under the control of foreign powers through invasion, but the overall bearing of its architecture is true to the original Galtaean design. Within the palace are secret chambers containing documents and treasures belonging to the royal family. Few who live beyond the palace walls know how they may be found. Gespenst. Strange name. Being an undead given to sudden manifestation in the streets of large towns where the living reside in numbers, such that perish with sins unabsolved are barred from celestial repose and cast into the darkness, from which pollution they rise once more. Though they are related in sort to the ethereal ghost, their fearsome appearance has led to the widespread belief that they are none other than the very hand of death. This has led some necromantic authorities to place them in a genus altogether separate from their ghostly kin. Alatap rumors. More equipment and weaponry draws its power from the darkness than your local armorer is like to admit. Of these, the demon shield is one of the best. Why, they even apply a Leomond Halcyon to age turtle shells and destrier barding these days. Makes you think twice about charging into battle against the forces of darkness. I mean, what if you're one of them? Says Strout, out an acolyte. The demon shield is pretty good. Very strong shield. A typical ghost. Any soul, when trapped in a coffin by magics, will become a vengeful thing of passionate violence, no matter how innocent or unsullied its former life. The ghost is a lamentable example of such. Tales tell of a mage who trapped his lover's soul in a casket of cold wood and set it at his side, only to be rent limb from limb by the monster his love became. Destroying the casket is often enough to dissipate the apparition, this being more properly called releasing, for it frees the soul at last to assume the form assigned to it by nature. The Ifrit is a #1 cruiser-class airship belonging to the 8th Fleet of the Arcadian Imperial Army. It led the Imperial response to the Resistance attack on the Royal Palace in Rabanastre. Water Elemental. The element of water, the vital element, present in all spaces where there exists life. Should a water elemental appear near a befouled pool, it is made clear as a mountain spring, and for this these entities are worshipped as purifiers by diverse faiths. As water consumeth all, and cleanseth the land, so doth silence uprising and purified thought, says the central tenet of one such belief, much to the dismay of those caught up in its holy wars. To hear tell of it, nothing packs quite the punch of the bombs made in the lands to the far west. But how exactly does one go about fashioning something like a water bomb, an explosive which harnesses the power of water? You need water, of course, and a binding agent to hold it. Yet aught's missing, and I'm lost as to what it might be. Truly a challenge to warm the heart of this old artificer, says Karimt, a guild artificer. The Barheen Passage, which is where I am right now. Stealing. Being an avian possessed of clawed hands and a deep purple hue as though 'twere cut from the dark cloth of night. From the records of the naturalists Merlots, liveth they in the dark places, feeding on the life humors of other monstrosities. It is known to modern natural philosophers that they are not guided through the black by the devil's hand, as was once suggested, but instead they employ a cry of such high pitch that is as silence to human ears, and by its echoing do they navigate with uncanny precision. It is a peculiarity of their ilk that they hunt often in packs, whence comes our common expression, wings of leather, flock together. Airships are airborne craft developed by Mughals centuries ago. They float by the power of skystone and are given direction and speed by means of propeller or glossaire ring. Currently, they are one of the most popular forms of transport in Ivalice, and the sky routes are comfortably the busiest of the highways linking the major cities. Airships range in size from private yachts to giant military warcraft, unable to fly in Yogd, where skystone is ineffective. No longer the truth thanks to Sid. Jock to Sid. The Surrender. Being a carnivorous beast commonly dwelling near shallow bodies of water. Though their feet lack the webbing of other aquatic creatures, their fins on their tails can be thrust in a sideways manner, propelling them with frightening celerity. Their horns being used to contest dominance over females and determining standing in the herd by virtue of length. Such with smaller horns learn swiftly to keep out of harm's way. While they are normally quite docile, during the mating season they can be easily agitated and attack a sudden with a great whooping cry. Nabana Fortress and their dungeons. A great dungeon created when the Arcadian army sealed off the lower levels of Nabana Fortress, originally a complex low town region. In addition to the usual collection of petty thieves and murderers, its inmates include political dissenters and prisoners of war from the Dalmascan and Ebraudian armies, all thrown together without discrimination, separation, or order. An oubliette has been created in the depths of the fortress to hold these prisoners, whose cases await judgment before the court of Arcadia. The Mimic. Being an insectoid with 4 sharpened limbs and a hard metallic shell, preferring to feast upon brains of high intellect, whereby they may improve their own faculties. By arranging their own carapaces to resemble a coffer, they wait for unwitting prey to open them, thereby proving some modicum of intelligence, and thus suitability for consumption. It is most often humans, racked with base greed, who fall prey to this simple but efficacious ruse, which in turn has made Humes the mainstay of the mimic's diet. I think it's efficacious. Electricity and magic. With the discovery and harnessing of electricity, it was suddenly possible to operate devices of far larger scale than ever before conceived. However, the vast quantity of solid fuel required to generate electrical power and the development of methods to artificially consume mist led to the latter supplanting the former as the dominant usable energy source in Ivalice. Only the most energy-hungry devices still use electricity today. The typical zombie. Being a corpse exhumed, bound by foul magics, and enslaved. The corruption of the flesh is advanced, its stench both rank and cloying withal. As exposure to the sun's rays speeds this decay, they are oft conditioned for nocturnal activity. Perhaps due to this, they seem to shun even the lesser light of candles, etc. Mist. Naturally occurring energy, found in almost all regions of the world, affecting all living things, the climate, and even the land itself. Magic is but one of the diverse methods of harnessing the power of mist, the most common being via its controlled release from magicite, an ore known to hold high concentrations of condensed mist within its crystalline structure. For larger effects, a greater amount of mist is required, making particularly rich magicite a valuable commodity. There are marked regional differences in the amount of mist contained in the atmosphere and soil. While typically invisible to the naked eye, high densities of mist will occasionally manifest in very visible phenomena. The highest concentrations of mist can even do damage, leading to over-rapid changes in the environment and violent behavior among animals and those more sensitive to the mist's effects, like Vieira. A tiny mimic. The wandering nature of these creatures has been attributed to their apparent predilection for hunting prey of high intelligence. From their diet of nature's intelligentsia, they receive nutrients to aid their own development, and it so follows that fledglings are often vapid and dull, Some strains, however, such as the tiny bug, never leave the larval stage, and so die as poor of wit as when they were born. As poor of wit as they were when they were born. I should think you know by now that arrows, shot, and the like are a prize commodity in these parts, eh? Most of them, you see, must be imported from other lands. We've none but ourselves to blame, mind you. If only there were a few more people here with the skill to craft them. Aye, that's why you'll be going to the bazaar for your munitions. Bring some scales or fangs and you'll get what you need, says Galbalta the merchant. Skeletons. One of many, one of many. Many are those who bear burdens through life and fail to relinquish them at the moment of death. Weighted down, they attain not heaven but are cast aside to wander the land as skeletons. Robbed of the pardon of flesh, they are cursed to walk for eons till their very bones are reduced to ash. Only when they are undone and gone from this world and nothing remains to bear that which they should have not borne, will they permit themselves eternal sleep. Bizarre goods. Loot from monsters and the like are crafted into articles fit for sale. Some of these are a little more than refinements on the base materials. Others require crystals, concoctions, and alchemy to produce. Few require too much skill or effort, though making crafted articles a common sight at market, their quality, if not quite their appearance, being hardly distinguishable from that of regularly produced goods. If one is lucky, one might find some articles selling for below the going rate. Battery Mimic. What strange manner of creature to so readily absorb the crackling power of electricity? Having absorbed an appropriate amount of nourishment from their feast of lightning, they discharge spectacularly, this being their primary form of excretion. Foregoing food of substance, their lifespan is pitifully short. Witness the marksman, you'll find that the steadiest of arms and truest of aims belong to the most cautious, cowardly fellows of the bunch. These be they that use silent shot and like trickery to make sure that when that one killing shot misses its mark, it draws no unfriendly attention. Just between you and me, I've found through plentiful study that this shot may be made with magical processes of a most special variety, requiring darkness trapped within a certain kind of scale. A scale, says Frimlad, a mage. Another ghost. The shapeless emotion of fear coalesced and made manifest by magics. Fear remains in traces for a time where men have been slaughtered, and it is there, in Aceldama, where specters are known to arise. As their bodies are composed of little more than fear itself, other emotions are anathema to them, and liable to incite attack. In defense of their very substance, they will rend their victim's soul from its bodily cage, leaving naught behind but fear. Thus are new specters born. You gotta respect this game. If you go through all of this, you learn a lot of new words. The markets are astir with the news that a great storm of some duration has made it impossible for the lands by the eastern sea to fish. When the storm breaks, 'twill be a rush on the waters. No doubt why everyone and his cousin is looking to get their horn or foul flesh to be sold for bait now's the time, as much as it costs to buy an imported javelin or the like. I hear there's an apprentice swordsman. Tiny battery. Gaze upon the larval form of the battery mimic in despair. Racked with hunger from the moment of birth, every moment of these poor creatures' lives is spent in pursuit of sustenance. Technically, they can be considered to be in a constant state of starvation until maturity, and are prone to attack any perceived obstruction to their feeding. On rare occasions, a tiny battery possessing a modicum of intellect is born. Theories that these gifted grubs become queens have gained some following of late. When things want crafting, a rock what's got magic in it, even a sniff, is the order of the day. Now you don't need to know what to do with it, but you do need to know this. Adventurers need society, just like society needs adventurers. What's that got to do with the price of potions, Laryl? I hear you ask. Well, them very same stones what you adventurers earn in honest skill flogging at market just happen to make the world go round too. Simple as that. How'd you know my name anyway? Says Laurel and Archer. Mimeo. Being a creature whose substance is almost entirely metallic, that its parts so close resemble commonly worked metals assist its camouflage. Few are they who deem an unmoving lump of iron to be just cause for alarm, and so do the corpses of the foolish congregate around such innocuous deposits. Terrestrial conveyances. We are all told at one time or another, but how many of us recall that Ivalice is covered with mimic germanites? Easy to forget as they have little impact on living creatures, but any Moogle worth his hammer could tell you the horribly corrosive effect the little devils have on the metals most often used for engines and vehicles. All the better for airships, which fly high above the germanite clouds, yet a sorry state of affairs for those who would make their journeys on land. The next time you see a party of traveling chocobo and chocobo-led wagon, you will know why they're the preferred means of overland transport, won't you? This is very interesting because you never see this. I guess they're like termites. Kind of fascinating. Flan. Being an amorph, coated in slime, its eyes and mouth having a most evil aspect. They know no distinction of sex, instead absorbing prey until enough bulk has been gleaned, whereupon they divide their mass, creating offspring in this manner. Recent research has shown striking similarities in the magical ordering of these creatures with the ordering seen in naturally occurring mist, leading some to believe that their generation is tied to mist at a fundamental level. The Iron Stomach, a guild of tasters known for its roster of legendary chefs, has announced a new dessert called flan after the creature of the same name and fashioned to look much like its namesake. Its popularity is rising as a hunter's treat. In an astonishing example of creature influencing dessert, influencing creature, it has become common practice to refer to the darkened region near the flan's head as caramel, a truer sign of the dessert's popularity than any of its creators could have ever hoped for. Skull Defender. Being the corpse of a fallen warrior plated in armor of pale bronze. Brave and eager for battle in life, they continue to lust for war in undeath. From their preferred haunts of man-made caves and mines, some Skull Defenders are thought to be fallen hunters, slain in their quest for a mark. Rumor has it that the island nations to the west lack the iron to make decent quality fishing goods. Apparently they use one grade of iron for the weapons they export and a cheaper grade for the goods they use in their everyday lives. It seems to me they could lower the quality of their iron swords and solve their problem, but I think they have too much pride for that. This is Tornamood, a swordsman. Bombs. An ensorcelled weapon for use against mages in days past, left to grow wild. Known to react swiftly to the presence of magic, the action of which triggering the explosive energies contained within. Notwithstanding, the release of said energy leads to an explosion of a physical nature, making it greatly effective against targets who rely upon magical protection. Many are the mages who hesitate to work magic around bombs in their ilk. Barheem Passage. An underground passage beneath the fortress at Nabana. Originally a railway to carry goods into the fortress, the passage was closed with the introduction of airships as the primary means of transport. The abandoned railway line is now rife with mist and the dwelling place of many fell beasts. Like this one, dead bones. The fate of such who sought to barter with demons for exemption from death, yet were found by the Reaper all the same. Their souls filled with dark energies, they are cursed to live another life, a half-life, as punishment. To add to their torment, the dark energies within them slowly devour their being, causing endless pain. And so, people speak of these tortured souls, these dead bones, with pity, relieved that their fate is theirs alone. Why did the ancients perish? Given what we know of their strength and power as a race, it is difficult to fathom. The level of technology and magical potency exhibited by their relics are in many ways far superior to our own. So why did they die? Could it be that for all our preparations a similar fate awaits us? To solve this riddle, it is imperative that we study the ancient bones while we study what ancient bones are left to us and thereby shed light upon a past which may predict our future. The Lusu Mines. Vampire, or vampire, being a variety of stealing draped in crimson fur. The most vampiric of their ilk obtaining sustenance from other creatures' blood alone. Making their abode in magicite mines and other darkened places, they feed on beasts and miners alike. Because of this, they are renowned for spreading disease and depriving many a mine of its entire workforce in the space of days. The Lusu Mines is a crystal mine located on the sky continent of Dorstanus. Many years have passed since the ore veins were first discovered here, yet even today high-quality ores are found and processed in these well-worked shafts. Many claim that the success of the mines is due to a project begun many centuries past by the Andor family, whereby mining across their domains was closely regulated, never permitting too much to be drawn from one place, thereby allowing the magicite crystals to naturally recover. The Lusu Mines are most famous for their high caliber of skystone, the material which enables airships to fly the skies, and memstone, a variety of magicite that can store sound and even images in its unique crystalline structure. I don't think memstone was ever used in this game, in any cutscenes. Unfortunately, the dense concentrations of mist in the mines lure all manners of beasts, and when mining expeditions are planned, palings must be erected to keep such creatures at bay. Headless. The Headless are surmised to be criminals of the dark lands whence they came, so called for the harnesses they must wear obscuring their bowed heads. These poor souls are tortured to distraction, their only hope of release being to coat their harnesses in the fresh blood of others. Thus they cut with blades both cruel and sharp, and in hideous ritual rub the severed limbs of their victims upon themselves. That's dark. Bujerba, an autonomous city-state found on the sky continent of Dorstanus, originally formed as a magicite mining colony with the advent of airship travel. The magicite mines of the Skylands are superior to crystal mines on the surface in both quantity and quality of ore, and Bujerba developed quickly on fortunes born of rock. During the years of the Galtean alliance, the Andorn family took over much of the daily business of Bujerba's governance, a rule which continues to this day. Their neutral stance during the Arcadian invasion 2 years ago positioned them as mediators of the peace negotiations that followed. Like much of Dorstanus, Bujerba is a city of hills and sloping boulevards. Merchant houses and shops are clustered near the peaks, while residences are found in the valleys. At the very bottom of the hills lies the network of crystalline shafts known as the Lusu Mines. Many visitors come to Bujerba to enjoy the open-air parks with spectacular views only available to those who live in the sky. Very rarely does anyone fall from the Sky City, and curiously enough, not a single death has been reported to have resulted from such an occurrence to date, which is really hard to believe. Killer Mantis, being a great insect with forelimbs resembling sharp scythes, the head being directly attached to and forming a part of the creature's upper body. The forelimb blades being jointed in 3 places, the better to grasp prey, their tips sharp as needles. While aggressive, they are also known to be quite cautious, raising their scythes at the first sign of danger to threaten and give warning to potential predators. Know what happens if you take Entite Lightning and direct the charge at Electrum? I'll tell you, you get gold, or something quite close, at least. Once the stuff was used in all manner of weapons for the look. These days you'll find little other than the odd golden axe that still uses the stuff. So you see, all that glitters really isn't gold. It says Pantagus? Alchemical Scholar. A Dullahan. Being a fallen angel with guilt-burdened wings, its behaloed head cut off and a cruel brace set in its place. Though originally emissaries sent to warn mankind of unnatural death, they came to enjoy the grim spectacle. The swords they wield are called blood brands, a sign of their bloody treachery against humanity. Pervama, the floating lands. A great landmass floating in the skies above the Naldoan Sea. Such landmasses are not uncommon, found throughout Ivalice in every sort and size, though the manner of their formation remains a mystery. The region in which they float has some bearing on their climate. However, most are warm to subtropical, boasting primordial jungles in which flora and fauna, both rare and wondrous, can be seen. The crust of these floating islands boasts a high magicite concentration, and after airships became a common mode of transport, mining colonies sprung up on the richest outcrops. Bujerba in Dorstanis is the largest of the sky cities and oversees the administration of many of the rest. A bug. Being a rare strain of mimic, its shell turned jet black due to magicite consumption at the larval stage. While the magicite content of its body works to harden its shell against attacks, this effect is lost outside of magicite-rich areas. Consequently, all attempts at laboratory inquiry into the creature have been in vain, and its mechanisms for absorbing the power of magicite remain a mystery. That's too bad. Metal of the highest grade is being traded as fast as it hits the market. Word has it that a certain war council, seeing which way the winds blow, and is pouring all its efforts into gearing up for the coming conflict. What's more, it's begun buying up broken weapons from anyone who will sell. I suppose even a notch blade is better than a handful of gil when the going gets rough, says Saucy and Navigator. Dark Lords. No warrior band of flesh and blood has followed so dark a leader as this cold corpse, wrapped in armor caked in the gore of countless slaughtered enemies. Chilling though it be, there is a reason behind this macabre decoration. In the barbaric past, it was thought that true victory came when you defeated not only the body but the soul of your enemy. Once the physical vessel of the soul was slain, the victim's remains were defiled and rubbed on the victor's armor withal, so that the soul would find no sanctuary but in the arms of its enemy. Yet the hatred of the fallen placed a curse upon these men, trapping them in their grisly armor even in death, and so they fell to dark wanderings. Not all souls are created equal, my friend. No, I ain't no missionary trying to peddle me faith. Try listening with your ears, not your mouth. According to my information, it's as good as its kind gets. The ones what top the list are called Imperial souls. See, it take a hero legend or a first-class crook who got himself a serious reputation to make that grade, says Delora Arrow, a street ear. Pandora. Some boxes are made to be open, others to remain closed. A prime example of the latter is none other than the Pandora, a fiendish creature that assumes the look of a chest or coffer, granting death to any who open it. But oh, the folly! For still it is whispered that the taboo upon the death box opening is nothing more than a rumor spread by those avaricious few who would claim the treasures inside for themselves. How many, hearing this, have opened what they believe to be a boon only to find a bane? Though it appears to be naught but a puppeteer's fantasy, the Pandora is a crafty creature with complex, highly developed innards that somehow harness the power of lightning. Where blood flows in our veins, lightning flows in theirs. Its heart, charged with the task of sending that lightning to the rest of the body, works much like the engine of an airship. Mechanists call this unusual organ the wrath of the gods. Gazer. Being a demon reaper, said to sense the presence of sinful knowledge, with the gleaming, baleful eye in the middle of his forehead. Look into its depths, and there you will see the reflection of all your sins, a revelation which will drive you to madness. How many have stopped a sudden, stricken by the accumulated weight of guilt, even as the cold, cruel claws of the gazer strip their soul of its earthly husk? The Bahamut, a number 1 Sky Fortress class airship belonging to the western divisions of the Arcadian Imperial Army, a mobile fortress and tactical base under the control of the commandant of the Arcadian forces, Lord Vane. This was the last Sky Fortress designed by Dr. Sid, powered both by ordinary skystone and manufactured nethicite, the latter absorbing mist from its surroundings to generate the massive amounts of energy the fortress requires to function. The Yensan Sansi. In Alrune, a curiously sentient plant-like creature favoring warm climes, both tropical and arid. The horns on their heads are used for cracking rock salt, from which they draw the salinity that sustains their life. The vines spreading like a mask from their necks have led to the classification of these creatures as a subvariety of Mandragora. Apparently, however, the distinctive viney ruff is a source of much frustration to the creatures, and they can often be seen clawing at them, looking much like irritated pets clawing at a leash. The Yogur Yensa Sansi, a desert region in the west of the Yag Yensa, most of it covered in a fine-grained sand that ebbs and flows like water, compared from antiquity to a sea. Abandoned drilling rigs can be found here and there, dotted about the ever-shifting terrain. In the past, the Rosarian Empire sought to draw rich oils from the ground here, but relentless attacks from the Uritan Yensa, who considered the Sansi to be solely theirs, drove them away. Men are now a rare sight inside the desert borders. Danbania. It's a variety of Ishtan, traveling the desert regions in flocks formed around a lone bull Danbania. It is a peculiarity of their physiology that a bone juts forth from the lower jaw like a spear. Their brownish-yellow coloration perfectly blends in with the sands, camouflaging them from their greatest natural predator, the wyvern. Their fins are highly evolved for scooping at the wind, lifting them upwards, and by flapping them as a bird flaps its wings, they can fly with ease. The Nam Yensa Sansi is a desert in the west of the Yag Yensa. Fine sand beats in waves against the feet of the rolling dunes of this region, which together with the Yogur Yensa Sansi is called the Great Yensan Sansi. To the west of the Nam Yensa lies the gorge known as the Valley of the Dead, so called because it has been the scene of many an ill-starred adventurer's demise. Axe Beak. Easily identified by its band of colored plumage, which rivals even that of the most exotic jungle fowl, this creature makes its home in the sun-baked desert climes of Ivalice. Adventurers be warned, its cheerfully colorful appearance belies a violent nature, and its beak is as sharp as the weapon after which it is named. Generally feeding upon smaller creatures, they have also been known to gather in packs for the hunting of larger prey. Let the egg sing of miracles, let it sing for the children. So pleads Curus Andi in her latest song of succor for the orphans of war. Since ancient time, rainbow eggs have been prized as a miracle food, a rich source of nutrition in a small, easily portable package. Recently, however, the egg's rich taste has attracted the appetites of the wealthy, the concomitant rise in price, lifting this amazing food out of the reach of those who need it most. Yensa. Being a great sand fish living in the sand sea of the Yag Yensa that, when full grown, becomes a bull Yensa. Though commonly found moving through the sands, they do occasionally surface, their outside being covered in a sheath of bony scales from which is secreted a viscous slime having the likeness of a membrane, this being to repel the intrusion of sand. The Uritan Yensa have learned the art of harnessing these beasts as an excellent means of travel across the trackless sand sea, as seen in that cutscene earlier in the game. Hear ye, the Iron Stomach Guild of Tasters, known for its lust to discover new edibles at any cost, has discovered yet another delicacy, known as the Yensa fin. It's not only delicious, but reasonably priced to boot. The response from housekeepers has been universally positive. One such convert recommends a soup broth for bringing out the fin's full flavor. A book of recipes is in the works. The Wyvern. This strain of dragon possesses both the sharpened talons of a tyrant worm and the wings of a wyvern, the latter having been traded for forelimbs at some point in the creature's eons-long development. Particularly fond of the flesh of the Danbania fish, they wheel through the upper air, searching with keen eye for their next meal. On the same strain, the more aged individuals are called bell wyvern, thought to be emissaries of the war gods for their effect on warriors in the field, who are inspired to great acts of foolhardy courage and bravery by the merest sight of these mighty creatures in motion. The Strahl. Airship designed and built by YPA, a shipwrights guild of Arcades. Officially named the YPA GB-47 Test Combat Fighter, production was halted after the completion of a single test model due to dissatisfaction on the part of the Imperial customer with the costly dual movable wing design. Scheduled for scrapping, Balthier liberated the ship at the last moment. Balthier has since modified the Straw to his taste with a new engine and numerous other augmentations, making it a very different ship from the one envisioned by its YPA inventors. The Salamandentite. When the gods looked down on man, shivering in his ignorance, they bestowed upon him the gift of fire. So did the gods give both warmth and knowledge to man. Gradually man grew wiser and made many things. Yet when war came, he used his fire, the fire of the gods, for the taking of life, and the gods became angry, scorching the world. In this inferno was born the Salamandentite. To prevent the ne'er-sated hunger of flame from consuming all, drink only from that water which will ne'er parch, and thereby shall it be sated. Only then shall the shining electrum be revealed, at last, beneath burnt, weary ash. Now we're at the tomb of Wraithwall. All this reading makes me very thirsty. The Seeker. I like this bat. Good design. Being a sort of stealing, its body cloaked in fine white fur and favoring darkness to the light of day. Known to employ shrieks of an extremely high pitch as a means to navigate in the gloom, as well as to deprive potential prey of their sense of direction, a more conventional approach being used thereafter to deprive them of their lives, mainly feeding upon smaller creatures but known to attack larger foes in packs on occasion, giving rise to the extraordinary sight of a flight of white-winged creatures, speckled crimson with fresh blood. This wing, covered as it is in snow-white fur, is the most exceptionally beautiful stealing artifact. Should the fur be rich and even in its length and set, the wing becomes even more beautiful, a perfect work of art. To the trained eye of the collector, its value is beyond question. That is why I seek out these bat wings and store them reverently as another might hoard precious jewels. Yet another skeleton. Men whose souls have been wrenched from the flesh and made to march to another's tune are called lost souls. Sighting of these four creatures serving as guards for ancient ruins or graves are common. In modern times, even those with power and title are prevented from performing the rituals of extraction necessary to fashion these monstrosities, hopefully ensuring that none shall ever more be made. To release their souls from bondage, no other means is known save to pulverize their bones and return them to the earth. The Age of King Wraithwall. Many were the countries and kingdoms dotting Ivalice, and many were the wars waged in this time. Legend says that Wraithwall, a noble from a small country in Valendia, was granted a sword and magicite from the gods, and with these artifacts a mission to unify the land. His strategic genius and deep empathy with his people were evident in his rule of Valendia. And from there he went on to take control of the remaining two continents. Soon all Ivalice belonged to the Galtaean alliance, and a golden age had begun. Now king of all he surveyed, Wraithwall's was a benevolent and just reign, guiding the alliance for near half a century. After his death, the alliance held firm in new peace and prosperity for 400 years, until its dissolution with the passing of the last of Wraithwall's direct descendants. The Lesser Chimera. In times now ancient, mages work magics upon captured cockatrices to effect the eldritch creation of these twisted beings. They are possessed of a singularly wicked intellect, which they use to its full extent for the infliction of pain upon their enemies. Their wings shine as the rainbow, each bearing a blazing red eye marking that shifts from side to side as they move, these being used to discourage foes larger than they, and for purposes of attracting a mate during the mating season. You can't really see the underside of their wings. Yogged. Regions of mist-laden winds and magicite-rich soil precluding the proper operation of skystone. Shifts in weather have been known to make yogged where once there was none, though the reverse has never been recorded by chroniclers of such things. As airships cannot operate in yogged, no such region is under the control of a major country, making the yoggeds, lawless, perilous places. The zombie mage. Behold the fate of the sorcerer who seeks to satisfy his dark intellectual curiosity by means of the abnormal extension of his natural lifespan. Alas, though all manner of precaution be taken, he cannot stop the wearying gradual decay of the flesh. Yet what other means hath he to know the mysteries of this world? How many have walked this grim path? We shall never know, for they guard their secrets fiercely with tooth and nail to their graves and beyond. When we think of travelers, we think perhaps of people without ties to any place or thing, but this is not so. Take, for instance, clothing. The longer the journey one intends to take, the more important the clothes you must pack. One of the many choices available, travelers' vestments, are held in high esteem. Made of braid wool and tan hides, purchase one of these, and you've bought yourself a lightweight garment that feels great against the skin, with little or no chafing, says Tango, the Morpher apprentice. Skull Warrior. Cold bones, sheathed in armor, forged of a strong alloy, wielding a blade with more skill and more cruelty than any warrior alive. Perhaps all were as skilled in the forgotten past, for this undead creature's bearing, arms and armor, are of an ancient style. Indeed, the skull warrior's skill with a spear illuminates the old ways of war in a fashion more vivid and fearsome than any tome on the subject could hope to effect. Though pale by comparison, even a modern interpretation of the spearman's art is not to be underestimated when employed by a dedicated practitioner. Hear ye! Announcing a feat of hunting mastery such as the world has never seen, Donatellos the White Mage has trounced all existing records in the annual city gathering of hunters. As you know, each year, contestants vie to see who might slay the most creatures designated as that year's quarry. This year's target, the fiendish Skull Warrior. A tally has been made of broken spears retrieved, and Donatellos has distinguished himself for eternity with an incredible haul of 126. Honor to the champion. The Leash. Of the legions of ghosts that cling to this world, the greatest are called leashes. When a man dies with hatred enduring, he is rent from his station in this life and given new station in undeath according to the depth of his passion, a testament indeed to the depths of the evil manifested in these kings among the dead. Ugh, I'm hungry, but I will wait. House Solidor. A noble Arcadian family having a permanent seat on the Senate and de facto control over the Ministry of Law. In the days following Arcadia's establishment as an empire, House Solidor found itself in opposition to the then powerful military. Having won the ensuing struggle, it then initiated far-reaching revisions to the law in an attempt to prevent any further challenge to its supremacy. Subsequently, the Ministry of Law was created to monitor the military, with the Order of Judges at its head. House Solidor's firm grip on the workings of the empire can be felt to this day, with the Emperor Gramis IV in a succession of Solidor emperors. Rago. Once a proud statue set to protect the tomb of Wraithwall for all eternity, the horns and blade on its head being symbols of the dynasty king's authority and power. On a fell day, monsters intruded the sanctum of the tomb, and with them came a great surge in the mist within. Perhaps this caused the mechanisms of its control to fail, for now it is no better than the beasts it was charged to keep away, and it will rampage down death corridors until it is given its final rest. The Tomb of Wraithwall. West of the Yagyensa, deep in the Valley of the Dead, lies the tomb of Dynast King Wraithwall, a titanic stone structure built during the age of the Galtaean Alliance, to celebrate his subjugation of the lands bordering the Naldoan Sea. Inside can be found many technologies and architectural marvels beyond the ken of modern man. In addition to Wraithwall's crypt, the tomb contains priceless royal treasure. and only those with proof of direct lineage are suffered within. Intruders are met with traps, and guardians most terrible. Though the sky pirates know of the treasure's existence, none have succeeded in its theft as of yet. The tallow. Being an amorph appearing most often in those ancient ruins of religious power and ensorcelled bearing, the nodules of metal that float freely through its body suggest a previous existence as a statue, perhaps set to guard whatever building the ruins once were. Regardless, it is now melted beyond recognition. The inexhaustible flame atop its head is the source of its life energy, leading some to theorize, and not without merit, that the flame is indeed a fire elemental, forever bound to a strange, slimy master. House Dalmasca. Bloodline begun by the second Prince of Dalmasca to take up the mantle of rule after King Wraithwall's passing. The reign of Wraithwall's direct descendants, House Galtea, drew to a close after 400 years, marking the end of the Galtean alliance and the beginning of rule by House Dalmasca. Dalmascan reign continued for nearly 7 centuries, until the Arcadian invasion brought their era to an end. Osmone Plain. The Mesmenir. Being a breed of Sleipnir, conditioned to be the perfect faithful warhorse, uncannily skilled in warfare, able to sense the moment and flow of battle, and carry out maneuvers of some difficulty, such as the timely withdrawal from a fray to regroup and strike anew. The conditioning wrought on these creatures by the masters for whom they once fought was so steely that even after countless generations of breeding in the wild, it has not faded in the slightest. A tragedy indeed, for they consider all those not hailing from their long-deserted homeland to be enemies, and attack on sight. The history of things. At precisely what point the polished Bestiary main came to be used as a device for the casting of magics is unclear. The noble steeds from whence such main coverings came were named by a sorcerer, however, and perhaps this association has given them their magical properties. As tools for casting of magics go, these are among the best. I think you kind of see the judges wield something similar to this. The weapons they use kind of look like these mains. So, that's interesting. Chocobo. What creature, fair or foul, has affected the lives of the common man more than the noble chocobo? Though the yellow chocobo is by far the most common, and the only domesticable sort, many other wild breeds of differing hues have been identified. In general, the other colorations of chocobo tend to be quite violent, giving rise to the saying, yellow best for riding, aught else best be hiding. As even tame chocobos are known for their temper, true domestication requires time and expertise. Their curiosity can often get them into trouble, but they are charming, nevertheless, and popular throughout Ivalice. As famed naturalist Merlot once wrote, a little personality goeth a long way. Hear ye, good news for those knights who are sensitive of nose. Thanks to recent discoveries, you can bid a fond farewell to troublesome chocobo odors. The method is simple. Ply your chocobo chick with only fresh Giza greens, and that disconcertingly disgusting stench will diminish by up to 3/4. The news isn't all good, however, as it takes 2 to 3 years to raise a chocobo to riding age, meaning that the fragrant fruits of your labor won't ripen for some time. The Woo. The feathers of this strain of Urstrix carry a distinctly bluish hue on account of their craving for the flesh of the blue-furred panther. Though its wings have evolved such that it may no longer fly, its hind legs are developed to allow it to walk on land without difficulty. It is adapted remarkably well to life on the ground, being able to perform delicate actions with its vestigial wings, such as the carrying and holding of prey. Osmone Plain is a wide region of plains in Bancour bordering Dalmasca, mostly tall grasses, though here and there can be seen volcanic rock formations. In the past, a great battle was fought in the skies over Osmone Plain. The decaying airship wrecks punctuating the plains are monuments to the carnage once wrought there. The Zoo is an avian whose beak has regressed, turning into jagged teeth, like those of a tyrant worm. They have not a feather on their bodies, but instead are covered with a taut, thin membrane reducing wind resistance so that they may fly extremely fast when necessary. and with little or no effort at other times. Thus, throughout the day do they circle the sky, waiting for prey to appear upon the ground below. Fang of bat, vial of yellow liquid. Crooked fang, vial of yellow liquid. What's that? Don't mind me, I'm merely repeating the goods I need to exchange to get my hands on some new ammunition, lest I forget. They're not easy things to come by, you know, says Mersum, the treasure hunter. A viper. Being a strain of serpent, its body covered in leaden scales, and its mouth replete with razor-sharp fangs. Favoring small animals and their eggs, it secretes a deadly venom from its fangs which swiftly subdues its prey. Its midriff is divided in twain, each side containing a stomach with strong digestive juices connected to a long intestinal tract running down the tail. Their slender forms seem to suggest that they seldom eat, but that is far from the truth, their unique digestive biology giving them a famously voracious appetite. Jahara is a Garif village in Bancor. Here, chieftain elder watches over the old ways and so administers the tribe. Though many other villages dot the area, there is little direct communication between them. The Garif have worshipped Magicite since ancient times, and tribal legends tend much wisdom concerning the stones. When the time is right, the elders teach these lessons to the youth of the village, and on rare occasion to visitors from other lands. Abhorring machinery and iron, much of the Garif material culture is based on wood and stone and other unmanufactured things. Their houses, made of grass and strips of leather, allow a breeze to pass through and are uniquely suited to the hot, arid climate. On the hill overlooking the village is a meeting lodge, warmed always by a bonfire. Near the lodge are the elders' huts, and below the hill is a clearing ringed by a healer's hut and the tents of craftsmen, as well as a place to take care of the livestock, called Nena in the Garif tongue. Dalmasca has for many years honored the ways of the Garif, and so kept up peaceful trade and relations with this isolated people. Notice that there's never like any female Garif, at least none that are discernible. Zagnal. Being a monster with the stature of a man. When the range of the werewolves spread into the southern plains, they adapted to their new environment, standing on two legs to better see across the vast savanna. Their thin blue fur breathes well and retains moisture, perfectly accommodating the dramatic temperature change between night and day. Though they do not travel in packs, individuals are clearly ranked, and the weak always follow the lead of the strong. The Espers. Beings of strange form and appearance made by the gods in ancient times. Favored with great strength and intellect, the Espers knew power far beyond that of men. But their power made them proud, and at length they sought to challenge the gods. Seeing this, the gods were angered and struck down their blessed children, and binding their souls and flesh with the glyph of the beast, they stole their freedom for all eternity. Now they are bound to live only when summoned by their glyph, to serve whosoever called them forth. We'll see them later. Hybrid gator. Being a strain of gator originally accustomed to rivers in the tropics, later having adapted to a change of climate and life upon hard land. Their black fur absorbs and then traps in the sun's warmth, allowing them to maintain their body heat even when the weather changes for the worse. The head is set inside the cleft in the upper jaw, over which they peer from deep eye holes, on the lookout for prey and predators alike. Magicite. Common name for stones containing magical power, or as it is commonly manifest, mist. There exist varieties, spellstone being used for the preparation and working of magics, skystone giving flight to airships, and memstone holding fast sounds heard and visions seen, that they might be experienced again. Though their color, shape, and size may differ, these have no bearing on the quality of the stone. Some of the smallest stones are the most powerful, and some of the largest contain only a small amount of mist and are as good as useless. It is a property of magicite that it lose its mist over time, and once spent a stone's mist cannot be renewed. Magicite without mist is mere rock. The ability to manufacture magicite of some power has only recently been attained, and this after many long years of research. Sylphy Entite. To aid the weak, the gods set knowledge on the winds. The winds loft the seed of flower and tree, tell of the approach of beast, and carry the voice of an ally. But man cut down the trees, slew the beast, and screamed in the waste he had created. The gods sorrowed and raged, and sent a great vortex to flay the world of man to dust. The vast energy so released gave rise to the Sylphian type. The wind is fickle, going where it will, brushing like maiden's hair on the cheek, bewitching men and holding them captive. Take the wild wind, traveler, and give it virtue, through fortitude in immobilizing earth. For wind, once frozen, is a promise, and on the day that promise is broken will it surrender unto you, shining electrum. Gallimore Jungle. The panther. Being a great flesh eater with pale rippling blue fur and long whiskers extending from the corners of its mouth, these predators move in packs of 2 or 3, dividing roles as do hunters with a far greater than animal intelligence. The breadth of their territory varies with the amount of prey available, and in those places where food is scarce, they increase their range so as to avoid starvation. The Gallimore Jungle. A sprawling jungle in the Yog de Four, it remains much as it always has been, untouched by the hand of man. Though the Viera make their villages within this jungle, the ways to their enclaves are tangled and hidden. Barriers throughout the jungle, too, prevent easy passage. These were erected by the Viera to prevent outsiders from intruding, the blessing of their people needed before one may pass. A treant. A variety of golem having a body like the trunk of a tree. Indeed, they are known for their habit of blending into wooded surroundings, silently waiting to bring their massive fists down upon any who disturb the peace of the forest. It is said that they are the manifestation of the forest's lament at the loss of trees to the jaws of insatiable industry. Urit Village is a hidden village of Viera and Gallimore Jungle. Viera enclaves are scattered throughout the jungle, but all are warded against entry by those of other tribes or lands. Viera are reclusive by nature, living separate from the world outside, shunning even the society of their own kind, save when necessity demands. This isolation is in part made possible by the Viera ability to hear the spirit voice of the wood, and thereby know all that comes to pass within her borders. Throughout the history of Ivalice, rarely have the Viera ventured beyond the borders of the wood, and few outsiders know of their laws or customs. Viera villages are formed of massive trees linked by suspended paths, with dwellings and small shrines to the spirit of the wood encircling the trunks. During the day, many Viera come to a clearing in the village where a glistering spring bubbles up from the earth to meditate. Their leader resides in the center of the village and governs according to the word of the wood. Those who perform the sacred ceremonial duties of salve maker or wood warder stand at her side, defending the ways of the village and of the Viera. Compared to other races, the Viera seem to move at a slower, more contemplative pace, more at peace with the flow of time. However, some younger Viera have begun to question the wisdom of rejecting change in the midst of a rapidly developing Ivalice. The Hellhound. Being a hunter of the highest order with a body of jet black and an aura of eldritch ensorcelment, it would chase its quarry to the very gates of the underworld. Originally a type of hyena, a steady diet of malign magic creatures transmogrified it into what it is today. The sharp horn on its nose and long fangs jutting from its upper jaw are like to arrested magma. When they die, their color fades, becoming naught but dull black stone. Kerwan is largely forested. It's a largely forested continent lying to the southeast of Ordalia. Climate varies greatly by region, and many less hospitable areas are uninhabited. In the west of Kerwan lie the Garif live. In the wooded north dwell the Viera, both living in peace, apparently unaffected by the expansionist hunger that has so dominated human history. Though the human presence is strong on other continents, in Kerwan they can only be found in the eastern highlands on the slopes of the holy mountain of Kiltia, Baramises. The Dire Sore. Being a creature of dubious origin, either a wyvern that has lost its wings, or a creature of the water that became like to a worm. Sheathed in armor-like scales, its upper body is highly muscular, serving to support a giant head set with powerful jaws. It uses the horn on its nose to charge and stab like a long spear. Did you know that servants are only legally allowed to wear garments of a certain fabric? Turns out this law is a relic of the time when it was necessary to differentiate slaves from their owners, and perhaps it still serves the same function today. Funny thing is, servants have to wear the self-same fabric used to make Slaven harnesses. Ah, 'tis an evil law perpetuated by evil people, says Remo the Spearman. The original Marlborough. Being a hideous creature with brownish-green mottled skin and writhing tentacles, it eats only of flesh, drawing no sustenance from photosynthesis as do common plants. Favoring stealth, it approaches its prey in silence and strikes without warning, swallowing its victim whole. Its maw is filled with powerfully acidic saliva, and breathing the miasma that is its foul breath causes poisoning and madness. Clans. A group formed for the main purpose of driving beasts and fiends from civilized areas, called to action in particularly bad cases when individuals and town watches are not deemed equal to the task. Able to react more swiftly than equivalent military units, the clans are used by many smaller municipalities as rapid response peacekeepers. As a result, few clans' activities need heed the boundaries between territories, and they move freely across wastes and sacred lands alike. Gargoyle. Being a creature with a visage so hideous, even other demons are said to avert their eyes. Their form is derived from the carvings on churches and shrines designed to keep away evil spirits. The reputed effectiveness of such carvings led to their placement on many buildings throughout the world until their grotesque form became a common sight. This angered the demons, and in the spirit of wicked playfulness, some of them took the form of the very creations meant to drive them away. When is a sword like a torch? When it is a flame tongue. If I had some lumber and a Marlborough vine and a little bit of firestone, even I could make one. Well, I could have one made, provided I could find a good enough smithy, that is, says Lute the warrior. Great Marlborough. On reaching an advanced age, some Marlboroughs have been known to transform into an entirely different variety of Marlborough, gaining rank within the vegetative hierarchy, as it were. This phenomenon, known as the spirit tree flux, is found only in plants and related beings, for few other phyla enjoy such long life, and is thought to be due to the absorption of mist over several centuries. Such Marlboroughs' bodies turn the color of a rich argent ore, the saliva in their maws emitting a still fouler stench than before. The question of how exactly Marlboroughs produce their infamous bad breath has puzzled researchers for generations. A situation made all the more frustrating by the knowledge that understanding the production process would be the first step toward creating a neutralizing agent, not to mention adapting the stench for military use. However, years of painstaking inquiry have revealed only that the noxious fumes emanate from the foul liquid that constitutes the creature's saliva, a substance which can be manufactured by no means known to man. The Magicite mines. The Thunderbug. Being a battery mimic that, due to mist exposure, has left the normal course of its development and become something altogether different. As a result of the rapid changes induced by mist, much of its form is twisted and misshapen. A residual static charge helps this creature to regulate its temperature and generate the energy necessary to break down the materials from which it draws its sustenance. Its body is an example of evolution gone horribly awry, and many natural philosophers have suggested that it is in a very much terminal state, seeing no possible further permutation of form through which this creature has not already been. Curious indeed is this organ capable of capturing the very power of lightning. Made of metal and yet flesh, lines of a metallic substance trace this gizzard-like strands of a spider's web, running thence throughout the creature's body like our veins, delivering energy where it is needed. These lines hold fast lightning, never relinquishing a drop while their host is whole. Natural philosophers call this organ the charged gizzard. Jelly. Being a variant of flan covered in a glistening jewel-like slime. These are known to cluster in areas with machinery and like devices seeming to derive energy from their operation, which stimulates them to divide and multiply. It's just like Grimer, the Pokemon. Because of the flan's odd ecology, they are often found in cities and near residences where people and, more critically, their technologies are found. this proximity creating a real danger of jelly breakouts. Countless are the tales of villages and small towns consumed whole by a mass of quivering slime. The Hene Magicite Mines. Crystal mines in the mountainous region of Bancour still producing a great variety of magicite, even as other mines around them close, their veins dry and spent. The Arcadian Empire possesses mining rights here, making this a key location for their acquisition of the stones, bypassing intermediaries and fluctuating markets. Tyrannosaurus. Being a creature tough as stone, draped in scales hard as granite rock, and bearing orange coloration on their upper body. While its evolution has favored its hind legs with speed and strength, its forelimbs have shrunk, developing sharp claws for the tearing of hide and flesh. The name of the Tyrannosaurus, meaning one who frightens the very rocks, comes from the great saurian's habit of eating the wee creatures that dwell in the crevices of rocky mountain ranges, often swallowing a mouthful of rock in the process. Nethicite. A variety of magicite with the unusual property of absorbing mist, thereby nullifying the effects of magic. Though there is some mention of nethicite in ancient tomes, it has been thought lost or perhaps consumed, with no mention or record appearing for several centuries. Sky pirates call it magicite of legend. Latterly, methods of manufacturing nethicite have been developed in Arcades, and at the time of writing, several test samples are in active use. Hecties. Being an amorph possessing many eyes, it is a little known fact that of these eyes, only the foremost pair actually function. The others are thought to be a clever sort of mimicry intended to confuse those who might strike at the creature's real eyes and to discourage ambush withal. Unlike most flan, these do not reproduce by division of the entire body. Rather, small nodules protrude from the eye spots, these then detaching from the creature having attained sufficient mass to form autonomous offspring. Hear ye, the patent for ether, held for years by EC Magics and apothecaries, has expired today. Thus ends the group's second monopoly on a popular filter. The first, the ever-popular potion, came down sharply in price resultant of competition from other makers following the patent's release. Prices on unpurified ether are expected to drop in a similar fashion over the coming weeks. Giza Plains. Being a variety of plate worm, its eyes impaired by eons of living in deep magicite mines. In place of sight, it has developed the ability to sense tiny eddies and fluctuations in the mist's flow, allowing it to determine the position of enemies with preternatural accuracy. Its translucent insect-like wings have atrophied to the point where they may no longer sustain flight, but still its sharp claws and fangs make this worm of the deep a foe to be feared. Show me the alchemist who doesn't wish in his heart of hearts to know the secret behind an elixir, and I'll show you a fraud. Of course, he might already know it, but it's taboo to reveal the ingredients. That's why they all toil in solitude, though their goal be the same. Now, I spied an alchemist hard at work the other day. Seemed to me he was working at making an elixir, so I watched him for a good long while, and he looked as if he was trying to catch something, so he did. If I didn't know any better, why, I'd say he was trying to pick souls out of the air. Not a very likely story, I know, but that's what it looked like, sure enough, says Tayek, a master chef. Etem. Being casualties of invasion or oppression, these entities appear before those who are doomed to die, cutting away their victims' lives with cruel scythes out of hatred for the men who ended theirs. Many accounts hold these creatures to be a sort of grim reaper, but recent research has confirmed them to be nothing more than ghosts. Hear ye, another day of dust has come and gone, and what a day it was. On what other day can you have fey dust sprinkled upon your forehead, instantly absolving you of all sin and evil? Of course, it's not always such a day of rejoicing. Why, last year's shipments of the dust known as soul powder were waylaid, and merchants everywhere sold out of the stuff far too quickly. This year's stock was set aside in advance, and all who wished to participate could. A nightmare. Being a nightmarish equine creature living in deep forests, possessing strange external organs that twist and wind like snakes. Though they have the bearing of herbivores at first glance, the positioning of their eyes and set of their musculature are those of the flesh-eater. And indeed their teeth are sharp, being made for the tearing of tendon and hide. They are relentlessly aggressive, never abandoning a pursuit once the quarry has been sighted. And they can teleport. The uncharted wooded marches known as the Forests of Chaos are spoken of in legend. And though many are said to exist, little is known of their actual location. These dense forests, where the snowflies gather in great flurries, brushing against the faces of all who pass, are so named because the sound of the snowflies' whirring wings can pitch even the halest of wayfarers into confusion. They wander, lost, never again to leave the forest. While the marshes may hide countless treasures, they are also places of unknown and unknowable danger. Consider your future, wayfarer, consider your fate, and venture not into such places. The Necrofiend. Witness the fate of those whose learned minds were offered up and sacrificed by alchemists performing forbidden rites in pursuit of eternal life. These monstrosities live forever on the border between life and death, neither breathing the sweet air nor knowing the peace of eternal rest. Though they retain dim memories of their former lives and knowledge, their hearts were sundered long ago, and they are without any morality or honor, wholly consumed by the jealousy of the living. They say that the candle's flame is the shining of a soul. As the life dwindles and fades toward the end of its days, so does the flame flicker, gradually dimming until it disappears in a whiff of smoke. If the flame is the soul, then the smoke is the soul ascending to heaven. So did the candle earn its place in ceremony, and these tallows are called life wicks. One moment. I've been gone too long. I think I'm gonna stop and immediately restart another part where I will continue. I wonder if I could edit this blank part out, but I made some pretty good progress.